Welcome back after the introduction to the SUP Developer Center. We're going to do the first part of the series of tutorials now that will introduce you to building applications on the Sybase Unwired platform. If you have not watched SUP Developer Center introduction and you have no idea of how we got to what you can see on the screen right now, I encourage you to go back to the Developer Center's main page and watch the introduction. Okay, you're still here, so let's get started with the first part of the tutorial. That will show you how to create a mobile business object, how to create a workflow application, and how to deploy both to be able to use them on a mobile device. When you arrive at your SUP Developer Center computer for the first time, your Sybase Unwired server will not be started. To start the server, click on the Start Sybase Unwired Server icon on the desktop. This will bring up a terminal that starts the server, and that will, after it's done, close automatically. To see if the server started correctly, we're going to log on to the Sybase Control Center. Click the Control Center's icon, and when the logon screen appears, use SUP admin capital A as a user and S3P admin capital A as a password. Once you're logged into the Control Center, make sure that the Unwired server is up and running. You can do this by looking at the cluster view that will open up automatically and after a few seconds show your local server and state running. Now that you know your server is running, let's minimize the control center and move over to the first part of building your application. To do this, you need to start Sybase Unwired Workplace, also called Mobile SDK with version 2.1 of SUP. Once the mobile SDK is up, let's see if we can access the built-in sample database that came with SUP. Click on the My Sample Database entry in the Enterprise Explorer. The sample database seems to be working and we can connect to it. Now it's time to build our first application. Select File from the menu, then New, and then Mobile Application Project. The New Application wizard pops up. Give your project a name, virtually any name will do, and click Finish. Nice, the project got created successfully and was opened up in basic developer mode. To continue working, let's switch over to the advanced mode. Move your cursor over to the mobile application diagram canvas and right-click anywhere inside the white canvas. Select Switch Developer Profile and then select Advanced. Your project will now show more options in the Workspace Navigator. As the next step, we're going to create a mobile business object from the customer table inside the sample database. Open up the sample database, navigate to the customer table, and drag the table to the canvas of the mobile application diagram. The IDE will now inspect the table and present you with a quick create dialog where you can select which one of the create, read, update, delete methods you want to implement. We deselect create, update, and delete, which will only leave us with the select statement. Click finish now and the IDE will create the mobile business object for you. We can organize the objects real quick on the screen, and then the OBO is done and ready to be deployed. Right-click on the canvas again and select Deploy Project. Of course, we're going to say yes to the Save dialog here. Now change the MBO to a message-based MBO in the deployment dialog. Leave the rest as it is and hit Next. Leave everything selected on the content screen and move to the next screen. Say Next on the additional packages. We do not need any additional libraries to help us read from the table. When we get to the target server, double-click on the My Unwired Server entry. The IDE now tries to connect to your server. If this is successful, you will be able to select a domain and a security configuration. By default, there is only one default domain in the server and only one security configuration, and both are pre-selected. Now we are presented with the connection profile. In order for your server to connect to the sample database, respectively the MBO to the server sample database, we have to specify a connection that the SUP server can use. Click right under the server connection to open up the drop-down dialog with all connection profiles that exist on the server.
select the sample DB one. You should expect that the properties in the lower part of the dialog get populated now. Unfortunately, there is a bug here, and in order to populate them, you have to click once on this name of the sample database. Hit Next, and then on the following screen, Finish. This will start the deployment of your MBO to the SUP server. Phew, we're done with the MBO part. The next step is creating the hybrid container application that will consume the MBO. To create the application, right-click on your project folder inside the Workspace Navigator, select New, and then Mobile Workflow Forms Editor. Give your form a nice name like CustList and hit Next. The starting point screen gives you the options to select how your hybrid container application can be started. We want the mobile device user to start the application, and that's why we select Can be started on demand from the client. In your newly created CustList XBW file that is open now, switch to the flow design, then go over to your project in the Workspace Navigator. Open up the Mobile Business Object section and take the customer MBO that you created earlier and drag it over to the canvas. Double-click the Start screen to open it up. We're going to add a menu entry with which we will initiate reading from the MBO. Click once in the palette on the menu item and let the mouse go. Click again inside the menu to place the item. Drag and drop will not work here, so don't try it. Next is modifying the properties for the new entry in the menu. Select the entry in the menu and then the Properties tab. On the General tab within the Properties, switch the type of the menu entry from Save Screen to Online Request. This will allow us to attach the MBO to the menu entry. Click the Search button and in the Search for the MBO dialog, click Search again. As we only have one MBO deployed so far, the search will only return our customer list MBO. Select it and hit OK. Back in the Properties, check Invoke Object Query and from the drop-down take the Find All query. Think of a nice submit error message that you want the application to show if there are no customers in the database, and then use the Generate Error Screen button to automatically generate an error screen. Lastly, we're going to specify the default success screen to be the customer screen. If you now switch over to the flow design again and organize the generated screens, you should see the same flow that you can see here from start screen to customer detail, and from start screen to an error list and error details. You could deploy the application now. However, before we do that, I want to show you how to register a mobile device with the Unwired server. The advantage is that if a device is registered, we can immediately push the application to that device. To register the device, we first have to go back to the control center and let SUP know about the device that we are about to register. There is also a self-registration option on the device, but we are not going to cover this here. Inside the control center, go to the cluster management view and click on Applications. Inside Applications, choose the Application Connections tab and then click the Register button. Once the Register dialog comes up, specify user. You can use any username you like. You do not need to create this user anywhere else before in SUP. As a server name, use the IP address of your local machine. You can find the IP address on your background in the lower right corner of the desktop. As a server name, please do not use the host name. I will explain later on in the Android simulator why this is the case. Lastly, we're going to specify an activation code. Use any code you like here. Do not make any changes to any of the other fields for this tutorial. Hit the OK button and SUP will show a pending activation for device for the user and activation code we have specified. Good, we have our pending activation in the server. Let's fire up the Android simulator to register a device with the server. Please use the Android 2.2 simulator that is already created on the environment for the tutorial. Start the emulator, which will take a bit. I'm going to shortcut this here real quick. Once started, open the simulator up. We have already loaded the hybrid container into this simulator for you. Click on the container icon. The first thing the container will ask you is a password. On Android as well as on the iPhone, the container needs a password. Select a password and click OK. Now it's time to register the device. To do so, we need to specify the exact same information that we gave the SUP server when we registered the device in the control center. As a server name, specify the same IP. This is necessary because the Android device has no name resolution inside your system and can therefore only see the SUP server via the IP address. Enter 0 in the farm ID, which is the default farm ID. Lastly, we are entering the username and the activation code. Now go over to the device buttons and click the menu button for the screen menu. Then click Save inside the menu. Go back to the menu button and click Show Log in the menu. This will open up the connection log. Watch for the connected to server entries. They appear once the device successfully registers with the server. Let's check real quick in the control center on the status of the device. With the refresh button, we get the updated information on the screen, and we can now see that the device is online. Good to know that the device and the server are connected. Let's go back to our application and finally deploy it on the SUP server. Open the mobile SDK again to make some final adjustments and then deploy. Click inside the application canvas to open up the properties. On the General tab, you can change the icon of the application as well as the name of the app that gets displayed on the device. That's all we're going to change for now. The next step is to generate the code that is needed for your application. Right-click inside the canvas of your application and choose Generate Mobile Workflow Package from the pop-up menu. You will notice that we not only have the option of generating the code, but also deploy the app. Let's make use of this. Leave the Deploy to an Unwired Server checkbox checked, and also check the Assign Workflow to User. This will trigger an automated push of the application to any user that has a registered device on the SUP server we are connected to. A very useful feature during development. Finally, click the Finish button, which will trigger the generation and deployment of the application. Move over to the simulator that is still running in the background. Click the back button twice to get to the main screen of the hybrid container, and then use the menu button and click the workflow entry to navigate to the list of deployed applications. The SUP server should have deployed your application to the device already. If not, wait a couple of seconds for it to happen. Remember that we made this application a client-initiated workflow. This means that we can simply click on it to start it. And after a bit of watching the spinning wheel, we will be presented with the start screen. There really is nothing on the start screen as we only made a menu entry. Click on the menu button and you will see the Get Customers entry in it. Click the Get Customers button and after another spinning wheel, the app shows us all the customers in the database. Great! We are done with our very first application. I hope to see you in part 2, where we will enhance the app with a custom selection screen and where we will modify the output.